Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us for our first 2023 award Zoom session. It's great to see so many people that are coming into the meeting today. I do ask that if you haven't popped your mic on mute as yet, it would be terrific if you do, just so that we don't have any background noise. There's a little bit to get through, but this is also an interactive session. So as we go along, if you have questions, please feel free to either raise your hand and ask them, or you can pop them in the chat if you don't want to interrupt the conversation that's going on, and we'll attempt to get through them. So firstly, before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm based on Jara country, and I'm thinking that most of you are too, since you're across the Bendigo region, perhaps Tungarung country as well. And I'd like to welcome here, we have our head judge again, Dennis Barnett. Give us a wave, Dennis. And we also have our Business Excellence Awards Committee Chair from Be.Bendigo, Eve Richens, here in the room as well. So I'm going to hand over to Eve just to give you a little bit of an update on what's happening with the awards, and we'll get into some more information.
Thank you, Kath, and hopefully everyone can hear me. Some of you might have, hopefully most of you were at the nominations morning tea. So as we discussed, we've looked at the process and created a few more different types of events for this year, and making sure that there's plenty of information out there, and it's a really inspiring time of year, and as well a good business exercise for all of you, whether in the business awards or the individual ones. That process and learning about your business is really enlightening, and hopefully you'll all get something out of it regardless of the outcomes. So as some of you may know, we've added in more categories this year. Events and tourism is back. We kept that one off for a couple of years, probably self-explanatory, but as we all know, events are certainly back and selling out. Gastronomy, now that we're the city of gastronomy, we wanted to highlight that in our region, and all the great businesses that can go into that, and growers and creators. We've got creative industries, national or global footprint, which I know was one I was really keen for. I know there's some incredible businesses in Bendigo that are importing, exporting, going beyond Bendigo or even Victoria. So we really wanted to showcase that. And then Volunteer of the Year as well, which is supported by the Bendigo RSL Club. And yeah, looking forward to see who's nominated under that one. So probably first tips I can think of is make sure you read through the T's and C's. We've worked a lot on the process. Each year we review it, but this year as well, through the work of Be.Bendigo and with Kath and her team, the judging and application process, and what's going to work best, what's more credible, and the integrity of them. All of our judging is done with our external judging panel, which Dennis Barnett heads up. And we've also changed the process a little bit so that with your applications, there will be a 70% benchmark. So the applications will be graded, and if you receive over 70%, you'll automatically become a finalist for the category you've applied for, which we haven't done that in the past, but that can mean that some categories will have more finalists, which is great. It might mean that some categories have less, which is okay as well. But yeah, hopefully that process, it's a different way to do it, and some other awards are done that way too. But yeah, we're hoping that that's works out well. Just back on the T's and C's. So I had a question this morning from someone. If you've been nominated for a few categories, yes, you can apply in multiple categories. You'll have, there's for most of them, the same set few questions, and then there'll be specialized questions for each category. So yes, if you're applying in a few different categories for those top few questions, you can use the same answers where it fits. You'll probably still need to change a little bit of that content, but yes, that will be okay for those initial ones. And Kath, was there something else around the multiple? Oh, as well, if someone's nominated you for multiple categories, but you only want to go in one, you absolutely don't have to do all of them. If there is one that you feel you fit into best, just go for that one. If there's 3 that you think you could win all of them, go for it in applying for all 3. But yes, you can do whichever categories. And as well, Kath, I'll get you to confirm if someone's nominations don't have a category selected that they thought they could go in, are they still able to apply in that other category?
Yeah, absolutely. So the point of allowing the person who's nominated your business to select which categories they think that you are suitable for is just to help to, I guess, give you a bit of feedback on the types of business criteria or categories that your potential customers or fans are seeing you as, but you don't have to choose any of those categories. It's completely up to you to choose the category that you would like to enter that you think most suits your business. Ideally, you'll probably find if you are a new business that's looking at going in the emerging and energized category, somebody might have nominated you for a different business category, which has a criteria that says you have to have been operating for 3 years. You may not be eligible and you might need to swap to the other category, which allows businesses between 12 months and 3 years to enter. So it's up to you to have a look and see what you're most suitable to. But as a nominated business, you can choose any category that you'd like to enter that you feel is most suitable to the likelihood of you progressing to a finalist round.
Great, thanks, Kath. I think that's probably it from me, but good luck to everyone. Enjoy the process. If it helps, ask other people some of the questions that you're being asked in the application. They might, if they work closely with you, they might raise a few items that you haven't thought about that could definitely go in the application. So good luck. Thanks, Kath.
Thank you. So we're going to hear from Dennis next, and depending on the questions and the information that Dennis has provided, I'm more than happy to also at the end, if needed, run through any other little bits of T's and C's questions that people might have as we go. But over to you, Dennis, on how the judges operate and what you're looking for that makes a great submission.
Thanks, Kath, and thanks everyone. And I'd also just like to welcome Ashley and Greta, 2 of our winners from last year. And I'm going to go a bit rogue here because I like to throw things around a little bit and do things a bit different. And so I'm going to start by asking you guys, what questions have you got? And feel free to ask them of myself, Ashley or Greta. And I'll try and fill in any gaps that might be missed. So no silly questions, as I always say. Has anyone got any questions they want to fire at me? Otherwise, you just get stuck with me talking. So, all right, I'll lead the conversation while we're waiting for the flood of questions to come in. So I've judged for a number of years and head judge for a few years now too. The thing that I always tell applicants is there are more than one application in your category. And so when we're going through and assessing, it's got to be something a little bit different that stands out and really be personal. So the first question, for instance, might be around, tell us your vision, your values, all that sort of stuff. Don't just do a cut and paste. Don't go to your business plan. Don't go to your website. Just don't copy and paste it because it's impersonal. It doesn't show to us what it actually means to you. So just tailor the questions to show what it means to you. And what I also ask from the judges is that the first one we read in that category, that's our benchmark. So typically I'm a hard scorer. So apologies now if I have any of you in my categories, but the way I work is I'll probably make my first one I read a 3 across the board. So about a mid-range score. And then my next one, I assess that against the strength of the first one. And I'll keep following that through for each applicant in that category to make sure that there's a clear process. I can say, I hand on heart think that answer or that response is better than my benchmark and so forth. So we do have a lot. I do ask the judges to read them all or assess all their candidates in the each category at the same time. And you might spread them over 3 days for your 3 or different categories, but all applications are assessed at the same time for each category. One of the other things that often is raised is around conflicts of interest, and it was raised earlier around Bendigo being a small place with global influence. There is the real possibility that you get to see a judge that you might know. It might be on a just simply professional basis. And we as a judging group ask all of our judges to identify any conflicts of interest, and then we assess whether they're something we need to deal with or something that can be mitigated with certain procedures. So don't necessarily think that if you've got a judge that you know it might be an issue, there's a fair chance we've already assessed it to make sure it's being dealt with correctly. Ross, there's a question from Ross on how much detail are the judges looking for, please? It's Pandora's box, isn't it? So we can go into a lot of detail. And I've read some applications which are pages and pages long, but don't actually get to the nuts and bolts of what the actual question's asking. So as long as you answer the question and it's answered that it relates to your business and it's not just anything that could apply to any business, I don't think you need to go over the top. I've seen some really good responses that might be a paragraph and a half for each question. So some others might take a little bit of time. Like one of the common ones you might see around is in the finance, when you're talking about budgeting and things like that. I've seen some very generic responses around we prepare a budget, full stop. And I've seen others where we assess our performance regularly with our accountant. We prepare a budget, we keep on top of it, blah, blah, blah. And so if you can show a little bit more detail in questions that need it, don't just add detail for the sake of adding detail. A judge doesn't like reading long applications. Make it relevant. Given that's the only question so far, I'm actually just going to, again, throw it across to Greta to start with. And Greta, what words of wisdom can you share with the crew?
Sorry, I was muted. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. Look, listening to what you and Eve have both said sort of ring true for me this time of year when I was getting ready and thinking about my application. So very much about reading the questions and the terms and conditions. And I'd also given myself a bit of time to plan. So about now, I was starting to draft and really think about, I'd read the questions and I'd started to formulate answers in my head, just, you know, day-to-day stuff when you're ironing or whether getting ready for work. I sort of started a process of where I was preparing my answer because, as you say, the vision and the values, they're sort of things that, I mean, we do sit down and do sort of fine-tune it to some sort of mission, you know, like there's an answer we give to many questions, to the same question, but as you say, make it more personal. So I was trying to, I guess my answers came from my head and my heart. So I was trying to just speak the truth and talk about our brand and who we are as a business and how I operate as a person as well. So I was spending a bit of time just having little conversations in my head actually about my answers to questions. And then I sat down with someone else who was external to the business but knew us. And went through the questions and suggested my ideas for answering each question. And in doing that, the two of us were able to sort of really fine tune it and agree and disagree and agree again about what we thought the judges might be looking for. So there was a bit of finessing the answers, and then we came down, we sat down and I wrote the answers, and I had another little time where we finessed again. So that took a couple of weeks to get. I just didn't sit down and do it in one hit. It had been something that I'd been thinking about for quite a few weeks. So my suggestion is to give yourself time and to actually really think about the responses, because values, mission statements, like those first key questions, like you say, Dennis, were, they've got to be well worded and they've got to be interesting and true, and the judges are sitting there looking for, impressive. They want to be engaged. They want to actually look at the business and know that whoever they're judging, it's a business that's on the right track and going to represent Bendigo in a light that we all want it to be represented in. Does that help?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, Greta, and I love the fact that you challenged it with someone else.
Yeah.
I think everyone, truthfully, in business would be guilty of underselling their own business and skills, because we take for granted what we do is just part of what we do. It's not anything particularly special to someone else, but actually someone's taken the opportunity to nominate you for an award. They see something special. And so while you might overlook those simple little things that separate you from someone else, it is worth challenging it with someone and just making sure you're capturing what everyone else sees, not just what you think. So great point, Greta.
Thank you. There you go.
If I can just jump in for a couple of seconds. There's some
it's unbelievable.
So there's a couple of really great questions there. The first one is, does the application response need to be written, or can it include photos, for example? So there's 2 stages to the application process, and I know that this is going to help answer one of the other ones there too. The first stage is the written application, which is the review of your basic business information and the scoring. The second part of the judging process, should you reach that 70% milestone, is the site visits or an in-person interview process. So for some businesses, a site visit is exactly what needs to happen, because we need to come and see how you operate. For other businesses, a site visit isn't necessarily the best way for us to conduct that second part. So that may be a meeting at the Be.Bendigo office. It could be at a site that you decide is a good representation of your business and what you do. And that's when you can have the opportunity, if you've got images or some kind of presentation you'd like to show the judges, you would do it then. So the question around photos would happen if that was appropriate to you explaining what you do, should you make it to 70% and there's a site visit or a presentation that's undertaken after that. The next one was, are we expecting the judges to visit the businesses, which I've just touched on, and are they the same judges for each category like last year? So we do have a number of new judges this year. We've spent a lot of time giving our judging panel a bit of a refresh and seeking not both experts in specific category areas, but also people that are potentially from outside of Bendigo as well. So they don't know your business at all, and they're really just looking at your business as I guess with no personal attachment to it, and having that really nice mix of being understand the landscape you work in versus the essential business criteria that you should be judged upon. Dennis, do you want to comment a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I was going to, you know how I like going rogue, and apologies for everyone for the, I'm going to just detour from your question again, Kath, and follow my own line, but it kind of links in, so I think we're okay. Ashley was also a winner last year with Treehouse, and I guess the question I've got for you, Ashley, is around those site visits, and how scary were we as judges coming in, and what was your approach to that process, and just so everyone else gets a bit of a feel of what's involved.
Thanks, Dennis. You were incredibly scary. No. I found that the site visits were not daunting at all. So the judges, they want to see what's exciting about your business, what you love about your business, they're there with a positive lens. So, you know, while they want to look at, you know, the way that you're operating but they really want to get a sense of the feel of your business, of your team. And I found that a lot of the questions that I had from the judges were around, what's my vision for this business? What are my long-term goals? You know, why am I doing this? So they really are looking for that passion and the ideas and, you know, obviously the day-to-day running of the business is really important. They need to know that that's sound. But I think, look, I could talk about my business all day, but they're there to listen to you and to really just understand who you are and what your business means.
And one final question, if I can, Ashley, what's the secret to a winning application?
Authenticity, I think. As you and Greta said, like having a personal voice and letting the judges know exactly where you're coming from. And I think the things that might have boosted our application, we included what our big dreams were and what our long-term goals were. And I think if you really do, as Greta said, put the groundwork into your vision, your mission, and your values, I found that with every question, I was linking back to those. So doing the groundwork on that first part, I'm not sure if the questions are the same this year, but on that, you know, you really need to solidify those values, because I think then that comes across throughout your whole application.
Terrific, thank you. And I think both, Ashley, if I can just reflect on both Ashley and Greta, as far as tailoring it to yourself, we've seen previously a lot of applications come in where they're phenomenal. You read it, they have produced a fantastic application, but when you actually go for a site visit, the business you see doesn't correlate to what you read on paper. So being sincere in your approach to answering the questions, and so that when we get out onto a site visit, you can say, yeah, they're the same business, is incredible. So don't just palm it off to someone in the office to get done, or to a third party. You have to own the application and make sure it's relevant. As far as the whole process and what you should look for, if there's any one thing you adhere to, it's make it related to you. What, as a judge, we don't like to see is just if we cross out the name of the application, it could apply to any business. There's a fair chance that judge may have heard of your business. They might even think you're their favourite business. But you have to assess each through your application that we don't know who you are. Sell us who you are and let that come through. Because it is really cool. We do have some phenomenal businesses, both here online now, but also within Bendigo. And through this process, it is amazing to see just how cool Bendigo is. So now, I don't know if there's any other questions, Kath, or what month? Oh, you've already answered that one. Look at that.
So there's a couple of other comments there. One was around feedback. We introduced judges' feedback last year, which is taken at the time of them filling out your written application. So as the judge fills out your written application and scores you, they then, at the same time of reading it, make any commentary at the end of that around any I guess what was great about your application or anything that they felt you were missing. So for the question around if you don't make the 70% where you get some feedback, yes, you will absolutely get some feedback on perhaps what was a bit lean versus what you did really well. Something else that we've introduced this year too to help you is that if anyone's had a chance to look at the questions in the categories as yet, so when you download that PDF, in case you want to print it off and start to write your own notes before you apply online, we have taken a lot of time to explain what we're looking for in each category. So you're not going in blind. You can actually read it and say, this is actually what this question is asking me. So it's easier for you to stay on point and be able to summarise what it is you're trying to say. That doesn't mean you can't add additional information in that you think might be relevant to the judges to know about you, if there's something really fantastic that you're doing or it's important that you communicate, but read what they're asking and make sure that you've actually answered that in your answer, because that's the core of how you're going to be scored.
Thanks, Kath. Any further questions? Feel free to ask. Jump off mute. You don't need to type. If you don't want to hear the dulcet tones of myself, there's Greta and Ashley.
Hello. I have a grizzly baby in the background, so if you hear her, I'm very sorry.
You're all right. What's up, Lindsay?
Just with Ashley, I think you mentioned how you linked all of your answers back to your vision statement. If you're you're applying obviously for certain categories, should you also be linking each question into that category as well? Because some of them sort of don't necessarily, like for instance, the question about your budget doesn't necessarily link into the question, but do you need to make it link?
I think it probably depends on the question. So I know, so we were emerging and energized last year. So, but a lot of the other questions were really just around our business processes. I think there definitely was a bend on, you know, as an energized business, wanting to focus on our goals and you know what we're hoping to do over the next few years. So, but I don't think, you know, if you were going for customer focused, for example, it's probably not relevant to talk about being customer focused in a budget section. So I think as long as you're answering the questions that are there with a bit of a bend towards, you know, what you want to be able to demonstrate as far as that category goes, I think be guided by the questions.
Yeah, 100%, Ashley. And I think if you're an applicant through a number of categories, there will be slight differences in each one. So it's not just a copy and paste between your applications, it's making it relevant to that category in particular. So great answer, Ash.
Yeah. And there's a question in the chat there that says, can you have client testimonials in your answers? Absolutely. All evidence is fabulous. Make sure that you include what you can to back up your claims. And there are some questions where it actually says a client testimonial is excellent evidence for this particular question. So there's a few hints there on when it's a good time to use them as well. We
actually included quite a long client testimonial as our answer, as pretty much our entire answer for the last question, which was, what do you want us to know about your business?
That's a great tip. A couple of other little terms and conditions things that might be important to point out at the moment is that while yes, you can enter as many categories as you like, you can only, as a business, you can only be a finalist in 2 of them. And just say you achieve 70% across 3 categories, the ones that you get the highest score is where you will be placed as a finalist for the 2 categories.
I've got a question similar to the last one. Are examples of reports and information like that, is that a good idea, or is that sort of something to leave out?
Just tailor it to the question, Daniel. I think if you've got some really great examples, sharing those on a site visit will be you'll be able to talk to it better. So if it's relevant to the question and can put it in there, by all means go for it. But don't just add content for the sake of adding content.
You might pull out some key results from your report, and then that you can use that as an example of backing up your evidence if you make it to the site visits after that, and then actually show the proper report then.
Yep, sure.
Just on the size of the answers, we touched on it before and how not to write a thesis, but keep it straight to the point. There is a 300 word limit your answers as well. So again, short and sharp and get to the point quickly. And some of that is to actually protect you as businesses too, so that your judges can see what you're all about quite quickly and really be, I guess, excited and absorbed in your application rather than being, overwhelmed by too much information. Do you have any other questions? Don't be embarrassed to ask, because I know that there's probably another 10 people in this call that are excited if you ask one, so that they can get the information as well.
I've probably got one, Kath, that perhaps people are wondering or might not realise they need it yet. But if anyone does have questions whilst they're doing their applications, if something pops up that they're not sure about, who would they be best to contact?
So you can contact our team. So we, whilst we're the event managers to support Be.Bendigo, we're also your help desk. So if there's anything that you need, whether it's tech support because you're having a problem with an application, through to wanting to understand what a question is actually asking you, or any other information that you might have as you go, please don't hesitate to reach out and make contact with our team, because we'll do the best we can to not only answer that, but to share that information with everybody else as well, because it's probably something other people are thinking too. But there is help there. You don't have to be lost. We won't help you write your application, but we will point you in the right direction on what you need to do.
Thanks, Kath.
And just with Kath's team, they are excellent in helping. So if you've got questions, do reach out. But one other thing I think, Kath, on prior years, just a really simple thing that's overlooked so often is not all the questions are answered in the application. You're shooting yourself in the foot if you don't answer all your questions. So just make sure that you respond to them, and because failing to do that could be the difference between you being a finalist and or not. So
I think just one small thing that I'd like to add to that is, and again, all this information is in the terms and conditions page on the website. If you're looking further, it's down the bottom in the footer is the terms and conditions link. We mentioned before that we need to have, or you need to have a score of 70% or more to proceed to the next round to be a finalist. And we need to have at least 2 businesses as finalists for that category to go ahead. Another process we've put in there just in case is if we do not have anybody that is that achieves the 70%, we will then in that category go to a second round where they'll be provided with some additional questions to see whether those businesses are worthy of getting to that 70%. So there is, we do have some different procedures there this year on making sure that whoever is a finalist is worthy of reaching at that finalist status, as opposed to feeling like you're not sure whether the criteria is clear or not. If you're worried, thinking about dates and what's happening, we'll be sharing all those judging dates soon as we go on. But whenever you go to the website, if you click the About button and scroll down, you will see key dates are being updated there regularly if you ever want to check in for anything there too. So you just scroll down to the middle of that About page and you can see the finalist event, which is another new event addition this year, where we'll be announcing the finalists in at a networking event with a venue and time to be announced. That's when, if you are a finalist, you'll receive your finalist certificate at that time. And then, of course, we have our Gala Awards, which is on a Thursday this year in the middle of August, and that is at Red Energy Arena. And it'll be a fabulous event, but it's a different venue and a different time of the week, but we think it's going to be just as exciting. Do you have any final questions? No? Is everybody feeling comfortable? They know where to get help? Hopefully you all say yes, and don't forget to ask, and try not to wait to right in the last 24 hours to ask us for help. That's another one, please. Try and do it earlier if you need anything rather than waiting for the last minute. Eve and Dennis, have you got any closing commentary you'd like to make before we finish up?
No, just reiterate, if you're not sure, ask. There's no doubt. I hope there's no doubt that you can reach out to Kath. Reach out to anyone you know who's been through the process previously, and just ask. Even see if you can see what their application was like. If they weren't a finalist, probably don't put too much on it, because obviously it wasn't a great application. But it'll at least give you a bit of an idea on the content and the style of questions that you might be able to respond to. But just ask, easiest way, and make sure that when you've put your application together, you actually do a sanity check against someone, and as Greta spoke to, because we often overlook the little bits that make us great. So if you actually ask someone to do that, it'll give you a bit of an idea. So
the final piece I had, which is that you would have noticed we've been recording this today, and we will be sending out the video to everybody. So if you do want to review it, or you may know another business that is thinking of entering and missed this, then at least you can share the video with them as well, so they can have these tips as well. Thank you for the nice messages there. That's lovely to see that you've got something out of the session. And the final one was, when are submissions due? May 31st at midnight. And the applications are turned off at midnight, and I do it personally, so it will happen. So please make sure that you have it in. And again, if you have any problems, try and iron them out in the days before they're due, not on the day, because our ability to help a lot of people all at once is limited when everybody's asking at once.
Thank you, Kath. Good luck, everyone.
Good luck, everyone. I'm sure you'll be brilliant.